Good evening. Good evening. Whew. How is everyone doing? It is currently 3:34. How is everyone doing? Let me know you're there when you come in. Give it some time to come in. I am going to I got to get me a car stand because I do my car chronicles. Hey Joseph, how are you? How is everything? You're welcome to join. This is the Response Herbility channel. This is a channel for women. But I have a few men on here, you know. This is not a man bashing channel. We don't hate men over here. we don't hate men. We need men over here. I don't know about nobody else channel, but over here, we need men. We don't have that type of energy over here, Joseph. We got good energy over here. We understand the assignment. We understand God's order on this channel. What you trying to understand, Joseph? What are you trying to understand? So chosen ones, the ones who are normally here with me. You see the title here, the fat grapes. We're gonna talk about the fat grapes. You say, oh, you're a woman, Joseph? You're gonna have to look. Let me tell you, you have to seek the Lord for that. Are you in tune with the Father? You got to seek God for that. There's somewhere in the word that tells you the ways of a woman could never be understood. You can never understand a woman. You need God to give you the revelation. You need God to give you the revelation. You have to seek him to understand her. Seek him. You know, women, we go through changes. We be dealing with stuff. So you got to get with your daddy. If he's not your daddy, you got to make him your father. He'll teach you how to deal with that woman. And when he teach you how to deal with her, when he teach you how to deal with you, she gonna fall in line. You don't have to do anything. You go to God. You can tame. I ain't gonna say tame her because she's not an animal, but she'll follow. She'll follow. If she's the one for you, she'll follow. When you talk to God, ask God for your vision. Ask God to guide you. When he lead you, she'll get it. She gonna get it right. She'll get it right. But you got to connect with God. God is the only way you're gonna have some order in your house. I'm just letting you know. I'm gonna let you know, not the world's way. We can't do stuff the world's way. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about relationship. You can commune with God right in your closet, right in your house. There's something about when a man cries out to God. When a man cries out to God, right? Yes, you probably are. Because when you get in order, that woman, she going to be acting like a little baby. She going to come to you. You're going to be like, what happened to her? She going to come to you like a little child when you get yourself together. Believe it. When you get in order, she's going to get in order. You're going to be like, whatever she tell you to do, she going to do. When you get in order. If you say go right, she going to be going right. She going to beat you going right. You say go left, she going to go left. But you got to get in communication with God. He'll guide you. He'll guide you. But you got to be sincere. You got to humble yourself. It's hard for men to humble themselves. It's hard. It's hard. When you get in connection with God, that's why we out of order. I talked about that on the video the other day. Women are out of order because men are out of order. And they're talking to all these podcasters, worldly podcasters, talking about this, that, and the other, thinking they know women, and none of them talk about God and they're in his order. When that man get in order, we won't have these women running wild. You remember Girl Gone Wild, Joseph? You remember that little ratchet show? Girls, they gone wild, taking off their top, shaking. We wouldn't be around here acting like that. We wouldn't be around here acting like that. If the men were in order, the men set the tone for how we act as women. The women run ratchet and wild because the men are running ratchet and wild. It's God, y'all, and then the women. in that order. Then the children. That's how it goes. And not religion. I'm not talking about religion, because we see religion is not working. People who proclaim to know God, they're not working. They're on their third and fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th marriage. I'm not talking about that. But that's another talk, Joseph. I wish I could sit here and, talk to you. But that's revelation God gave me by going through my own stuff and dysfunction. It's simple. God, then the men, they get together, and the women will be like little sheep. You ain't got to worry about. Look, the men wouldn't have to worry about what they always talking about, submission. The men won't have to worry about submission, because if they submit to God, the woman will submit to them. The woman would submit. You'd be like that lady on you remember on Coming to America, when he was trying to find his wife, and the lady was like, whatever kind of food you like. You remember on Coming to America, he was trying to find his queen, and the lady was like, I'll do anything you say. And he was like, bark like a dog. Arr, arr, arr. She went to barking like a dog. That's how the women to be. But the men out of order, y'all don't want no submission, because y'all are not submitted to God. Y'all don't want us to be like, whatever kinds of food you like. Y'all don't want that. Y'all want them ratchet, wild, untamed. Y'all want them type of women. Y'all want them kind. Because if y'all didn't want them kind, y'all will run to God. Y'all be running to God. Father, help me, for I not know what I'm doing. Y'all will be running. Y'all be running. But, we around here running out, we around here running wild, blaming each other. And God just sitting down there. Look at my kids. They just running wild. They just acting a fool down there on the land. I'll start to say, Lord, come and get your people. They're running amok. The men blaming the women blaming the men. No. Just follow the order. Simple step. God, the man, then the woman. In that order. So, but anyways, what I wanted to come talk to you all about, I wanted to come talk about the fat grapes. Right? The fat grapes. We're talking about the fat grapes over here. That's what we're talking about. Yesterday I did a live, and I was tired. It was in the evening. I did a live. I couldn't keep it up, so I had to take it down, right? But the ones who got it, you listen, you got a good message, right? But I want to talk about the fat grapes. And the reason I want to talk about the fat grapes, for you all who don't know what the fat grapes are, it's just the analogy I used, right? From the story in the Bible. I don't know all of the story. I had to go find it. But I think it's in Numbers chapter 13, around in that area. I had to go, look it up. I have my Bible here to look it up just to make sure that I was using the right analogy. I know I'm using the right analogy, but I had to go find the scriptures, right? But it's chapter 13 and 13. Yeah, chapter 13 in that area. But anyways, the fat grapes, just representation of when God was speaking to Moses, and he was telling them to send people to spy in the land of Canaan, right? And when they went to spy in the land of Canaan, that was the land, I guess, was flowing with milk and honey. That was the promised land, right? And I want to say it's in that area, but I'm going to go and do a more extensive study on that, because that just came to my spirit the other day. And I couldn't remember where I got it from. You know how you hear things over and over in church, and you hear stories, and you really never go read it for yourself. So that's what it was, that type of thing. So the fat grapes just represents the promised land. And that's a spiritual promised land and a physical. Most of us would cross over physically in the promised land. Yes. So I want to talk about the fat grapes. You remember when I, first gave you all the analogy about the fat grapes the other day? I was in the parking lot. I was in the same parking lot where I am now, but I was kind of dressed down, and we came up with that analogy, right? And, this is what I feel God was showing me with this analogy. So remember, I told you I had a parking lot ministry. I had a block and delete ministry. And now he said, now I have a fat grapes ministry. Listen, I have a fat grapes ministry already. He giving me all these little ministries. Now, block and delete ministry is kind of, that's just comical. That's funny. right? That's funny. That's where I block and delete people who come on this page with negative energy and talking all crazy and about things that has nothing to do with us, right? Nothing to do with us. So I just block and delete them. That's the block and delete ministry I talk about. But as far as the parking lot ministry, I was telling you all that, how I used to sit in my car and, I used to see the little old people, in the parking lot that was lost. And, God would, Holy Spirit would just tell me to go help them find their car. So that's where the parking lot ministry came from. Hello, Coach Monique. So that's where the parking lot ministry came from, right? But now, let me tell you, this is why you got to be obedient. Now I have a Fat Grapes ministry. A Fat Grapes ministry. How hilarious is that? I was driving home today, and I just felt in my spirit that, God was telling me, this is going to be a ministry. Hello, dear. This is going to be a ministry. And what he meant by that is the fat grapes, because we're always talking about the promised land, and we're talking about healing, right? Doing the work on ourselves, healing, right? And understanding when we heal, we're able to cross over. We start crossing over to the promised land. We start crossing over, and we can start seeing the fat grapes, the promised fruits, fat grapes in the milk and honey. Once we start the healing process and journey, and we will know when we are crossing over, because we could see the promised land. We could see the land flowing with milk and honey. We can see those clusters of grapes. I was reading the story, and I think it's around verse, 24. I think it's around 24, where they were talking about the clusters of grapes. They had to carry with the staff. They had to carry with the stick. 2 people had to carry the cluster of grapes with the stick. Now, the other day, I had some grapes in the cluster of grapes, and I didn't need a stick to carry those grapes. So those had to be some big grapes. That's why I call it the fat grapes. They had to be some fat grapes to carry with the staff. And that's where fat grapes come from. It's like a analogy to the, just a analogy saying that we're crossing over to the promised land, or we can see it, or we believe it, right? So the Fat Grapes ministry, that's going to be a real thing. On my page, I have not activated my membership. I have a membership, with YouTube. You can get your subscribers to follow you, right? You can get your subscribers to, follow you or subscribe to your membership. So one of the memberships is going to be called the Fat Grape membership. I was coming home and the Lord gave me that, like, you can name one of the memberships, the Fat Grapes memberships. And I was like, the Fat Grapes. That is a real thing. And it just sticks. It sticks, right? It sticks. Now, I don't need y'all trying to steal my stuff. Whoever's listening to this, don't steal my stuff, because you don't have the anointing. People try to take your stuff, but you don't have the anointing to carry out. Right? To carry out the knowledge God gave me. Right? That's why it's good to be obedient. That's what I came to talk to you all about, being obedient. When God tells you to do something, you got to go be obedient. Be obedient. Because in your obedience, he'll start giving you ideas. He will start giving you things like he's giving me. Because, you got some people, they just seems like they always hear from God. Like just God just sitting by them, in the bathroom. Like God is everywhere with them. And I'm not going to say that he's not everywhere with them, because I'm not them. But I do know when you take the time out and you pull away from everything and everybody, and you're sitting with yourself, you're dealing with, your internal mess, right? You're dealing with your internal mess. When you start working and getting rid of that clutter. Hi, Shakila. When you start working and getting rid of that clutter, he'll start giving you ideas. Holy Spirit will speak to you. He'll give you so many ideas. Listen, I have a, what them things called? I should know. Journal, but composition book. before I created my own journals. I have a composition book full of ideas. Full of ideas. When I'm up in my prayer time in the morning, he give me ideas. Ideas and downloads just drop. Just like these messages. How do you think I have so much to talk about? Although I am a talker, that's my gift. But just having so much to talk about and just having so many ideas. I get that from God. Holy Spirit download that to me because I don't have distractions. I don't have distractions. And in my quiet time, things come to me and I write it down. I write it down. I have so many ideas, books. I have plenty of books. I know they're going to be birthed too. I have a lot of books, book titles. I got one title. I don't know if God want me to release it. Listen, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I think he want me to change that title because I just got a little jitter in my spirit. I'm going to change that title. But we've seen it around here floating around on YouTube, on Facebook. But I have plenty of titles for books. Plenty. Because of downloads that I've gotten in my quiet time. Downloads that I have received in my quiet time in the morning. And see, that's what the enemy doesn't want. The enemy does not want you. Let me tell you, the enemy doesn't want you to declutter your life. He doesn't want you to sever those toxic relationships. He doesn't want you to isolate yourself for a season. And isolation is a good isolation. It's not a bad isolation. It's not a depression isolation. Because, there's different isolations, right? There's isolation for growth. And there's isolation because you're going through, you're depressed. You don't want to be around anyone because you're going through your own battles. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about isolation when he's trying to remove you, when he's trying to grow you. The enemy don't want that for you. He doesn't want that. Because if you ever get in a place where you take time to deal with you, where you take time to grow, where you take time to build your relationship with God, it's over for him. It's over for him, and it's over for people in your life that benefited from you when you were broken. It's over for them. It's over because God is going to grow you up. He's going to grow you up, give you boundaries. He's going to give you boundaries. He's going to give you a backbone. He's going to give you a backbone because religion taught us, especially believers, to be passive. To literally turn the left, the right cheek. To literally. No, that's not what that means. You don't bow down. You have to let God guide you. Let him order your steps, give you revelation. He's supposed to give you revelation. Sometimes we can take this stuff literally without understanding, because I'm not a Bible scholar. I don't know. But he'll give you revelation to certain things. He'll give you revelation. That's why you have to be in communication with him. And not people telling you, oh, this is how you're supposed to do that. This is how you're supposed to do that. Have you ever noticed people who don't believe like you do always telling you how you're supposed to do this, how you're supposed to do that? You don't supposed to say it like that. You don't tell me what I'm supposed to do. That's not your job. That's not your job. That is not your job to tell me how I'm supposed to be. You don't know where I am on my journey. Let me deal with the process, how God is dealing with me. Because if you've done something wrong, if you wrong somebody, I don't care if it's been 40 years, 30 years. When you get a relationship with the Lord, he's going to have you go back and correct that. Anything you ever did in your life that was wrong and out of order, God, the Holy Spirit will tell you. You have to go back and apologize. He's going to correct you. So you don't need people telling you. When you're fully submitted, he's going to correct you. Have you ever had to go apologize? Even when you felt, right? Even when you felt you were not wrong? Put a 1 in the chat. The Lord will send you back to apologize. If he's trying to do a work in you. And to me personally, I believe God have us to apologize to people. Even when they're wrong, he have you to apologize so he can get you in a place of humility. Put a 1 in the chat. Let me know if you had to do that. I had to do it several times. Several times. I didn't want to do it. But because I'm a chosen one, and I had to be obedient, I had to do it. I had to do it. He'll deal with you. You don't need anyone to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. When you get the relationship, a true relationship with God, he'll show you. He'll show you. You hear me? He will make you go back and apologize. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Put a 1 in the chat. I don't see any ones in the chat. So maybe I'm not talking to anyone today. But when God is dealing with you, he'll deal with you. I'm getting my glasses. That's his son. But yes, I want to come talk to you about the fat grapes. Be obedient. Be obedient in what God is telling you to do. Yes, Shantae. Yes, Shantae. He will. He'll deal with you. He will deal with you. I know he dealt with me. You be going to apologize to people. You be like, I didn't do nothing. But Lord, I didn't do it. They're in the wrong. And see, we look at it as if we apologize, we're in the wrong. That's not the case. That's not the case. When God is dealing with you, trying to humble you, oh, he'll make you go and apologize even when you were not wrong. So he could humble you. And he do things to test you to see if you're going to be obedient. Because I don't know about you all, but I'm in a place where I want to experience those fat grapes. I've been struggling and striving, and I've been broke, busted, and disgusted for too long in my life. I want to experience the fat grapes. I don't want to be toiling for things. I don't want to toil anymore. I don't want to have to force anything. I want to bask in what they call the soft life. I want to bask in what they call the soft life. I don't want to have to do that anymore. And the chosen ones, the reason you strived and you struggled because you didn't have the knowledge. You didn't know. And it's okay. You live and learn. You live and learn. I don't want to have to toil. I want to have to, hustle and work and do. I don't want to have to do that anymore. I want to experience the promised land. I want to experience the spiritual promised land and the natural promised land. But if you experience it spiritually first, The natural is going to come anyways, because whatever you experience naturally, the natural is more real than the physical. If you all didn't know, the natural is more real than the physical. It happens in the spirit first. I meant the spiritual is more real than the natural. I meant it happens in the spirit first, then it manifests naturally. That's where it manifests. A chair is not created naturally first. You don't just put a chair together. No, in your mind, that chair was put together. That chair was created in your mind first, and then you put it together naturally. And then it was a physical representation. You didn't say, I would like to have a baby. I would like to start my family. The baby didn't come first. You didn't have the baby first. Then you thought about it. No, you thought about the baby, building your family. You envisioned how you want your family to be. You thought about having a little girl first. That's spiritually. You prayed to God to give you a little girl first. And then you got pregnant. Then that baby manifested. That's what it's all about. That's what the fat grapes is all about. The promised land. That's what I'm working on. I don't need no natural. I don't need nothing natural. Because if I can see it spiritually, I know it'll come natural first. It'll come natural eventually, If I could see it in my mind, in my spirit, if I could envision that thing and hold it and believe, I know I can get it naturally. That's just like when I was going to school. I always wanted to finish school, go to college because of my grandmother. She never got a chance to finish school. She only had a 3rd grade education. Yes, Shantae, I want them girl, me too. I want them fat grapes. Listen, I've been looking. Look, that's all I've been thinking about, grapes. All day long, grapes. Thinking about the promised land. Thinking about where I'm going to go, where I'm headed, what I see. I've been thinking about it all day. Can't get enough of it. But I remember my grandmother talking to me, and I used to sit and talk to my grandmother a lot. I was raised by both of my grandparents at different times in my life. And I remember she used to talk about school, and she only had a 3rd grade education. She only had a 3rd grade education because back then, those people, they had to work and take care of the family. Everybody had to work to chip in. There was no welfare. There was no assistance. How we have all this assistance now? There was no assistance. But my grandmother, I used to listen to her, and it did something to me, right? I'm going to get to my point in a minute. It did something to me to listen to her always talk about how she wished she could go to school to learn how to read. She wished she was able to go to school to learn how to read and, get her education. And she knew how to write her name, but that was it. She knew how to count money. Now, them folks, they knew how to count. They know how to count their money. She just didn't have an education, right? Thank you, Rubia. She just didn't have an education. Like, she had a lot of wisdom, but she always wanted to get her education. She always wanted to go to school. And to watch my grandmother almost tear up every time. I never forget when I was a little girl, she used to tear up. She used to get sad when she tell me, I wish I was able to go to school. She used to get sad, and that did something to me as a little girl. That did something to me just to watch. And I was in, elementary at this time, and I was in 4th or 5th grade, and she used to talk about this every year, all the time. She talked about it. I heard the story a lot of times, right? And how she wished she would have, had the opportunity. So I took it upon myself to make sure that I go as far as I could. Because of my grandmother couldn't do it, I had to take the torch and go as far as I could. That's the only reason I wanted to become Dr. Monique McCray. That was the only reason. Listening to my grandmother. That was the only reason I wanted to become a doctor. That was the only reason. I'm still thinking about it. I don't know, because I'm in a different place. I don't want to incur any debt, but that was the reason I wanted to do it. And if I could get it paid for, I will do it. But right now I'm in a different season. I can't incur debt for another piece of paper. I won't be able to do that. But I did get my master's degree, and I did it. And the point I wanted to make, I saw myself becoming doctor. But I said, first, let me take one step at a time. But I envisioned myself getting my master's degree. I saw myself walking across the stage before I actually got it in my hand physically. But I wanted to say that to say I saw that thing spiritually before it manifested physically. And I know I was breaking a generational curse when I was getting my master's degree, because my first day in grad school, I had tears in my eyes. I struggled. This is how I know I got to make it to the promised land. I want to make it, and I've tasted the promised land spiritually. I've made some successes, and I've broke some barriers, and I've accomplished so many things. But spiritually, like healing, the healing part, now it's going to complete everything that I've done, because I accomplished all of those things, and I was not fully healed. Right? Because sometimes as a broken chosen one, we become what they call it. We become overachievers. We become overachievers. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Overachievers. Because we're trying to receive validation. But there was a myriad of things mixed up with me achieving so many things at a high level. There was so many things mixed in that. But my grandmother was the main reason I wanted to go as far as I could. Even if I can't make it, I want my kids to go farther. I want them to go beyond what I've accomplished. Do bigger and better things. I'm not one of those parents that want to keep their children from excelling. You know, you have some parents that try to keep their children stagnant and dependent. I'm not one of those parents. Because of my grandmother, I want my kids to excel. I want them to go further than me. I want them to do better than me. I want them to become better. I want them to do more. I want them to be wealthier, more independent. I've always saw that for my children. I always wanted that for them. But just because I want it, they have to want it for themselves. Because sometimes you can want something more for someone else than they want for themselves. I had to come to that reality. I had to come to that reality. But that's what I want for my children. And watching my grandmother, just watching her get sad every time she talked about going to school. It just ignited something in me. It was by any means necessary I was going to finish school. I did it. With 4 children, I did it. Working full time, I did it. Married, I did it. And it's all God's grace and mercy. But I had to not have an excuse for not doing something and carrying the torch, because when my grandmother was coming up, they had more obstacles than I had. They didn't have anything called student loans, which I wouldn't refer you get into no student loan debt to get a degree. Pay for it if you can. One class at a time. But they didn't have the resources. So I felt obligated. felt obligated to go as far as I could. It was because of her that I pushed myself to the promised land. She couldn't make it. Like Dr. King said, he may not make it with us, but he still could see it. She didn't make it with me. She didn't see me graduate. But I carried the torch. I made it to one of the promised land. I made it to the promised land in that area. Now, the wise thing is, because I didn't have the knowledge that I had when I was going to school about debt, now my job is to make sure my children don't incur debt. They go farther, and they don't incur the debt. Because that debt is no joke. That debt is no joke. Because we're trying to make it to the promised land. You can't make it to the promised land if you bog down with debt. That's like a chain around your neck. It's always going to be sitting there over your head, looking at you like, hello, I'm not going anywhere. But once you start doing the work on yourself, spiritually, doing the healing journey. And the healing journey is just that. It's a journey. It is just doing the opposite of what you have always done. Doing the opposite of how you've always reacted. Facing issues that causes you to react a certain way. Dealing with whatever you got going on inside of you. That's all it is. That's the healing journey. That's all it is. That's all it is. Just finally facing you. In order to make it to eat the fat grapes, you got to see that spiritually. To enjoy the land flowing with milk and honey. Just imagine. You're just at peace in your spirit. And you're just at peace. You're not worried about nobody and their issues. You're just at peace. You don't have no financial worries. You deal with things as they come. You don't worry about it. You're not worrying about next year. You're not worrying about tomorrow. You're just living day by day. Enjoying where you are in this moment. You're not stressed out about anything. You're not allowing what's going on in the world to shake and move your faith. You understand that things are going to happen in the world. You have no control over it. Just imagine you just flowing with the current. Of the promised land. You're just flowing in the land of milk and honey. You're just flowing. No worries. You're not worrying about who said what, who did what they're going to think. You're just relieved of all of that. What they're going to think. I don't want to go, you're at peace. I know I could see it. I could see it. Not dealing with people and their stuff and their issues. Knowing that you only can control yourself and what you have going on. I want the fat grapes. I don't know about you all, but that's what I want. The fat grapes. Being content and happy with what you have. That's what it's about. But that's all I wanted to come talk to you all about in this message here. Just the fat grapes. Crossing over to the promised land. Crossing over to the promised land. You know what, y'all? I have to go. So be blessed. And I'll talk to you all later. May come back on if I have a message. But if not, I will talk to you all tomorrow. Okay? Be blessed.